So what we have in the shop today is a 2018 Volkswagen Tiguan, and the problem that it's having is the secondary air injection system is not operating properly. I'm not a factory trained technician on these things. I just go based off of theory of operation. These cars are pretty basic when it comes to their air injection system. It has a pump, hoses, and a distribution valve or just an air valve. It opens and it closes, and it allows air into the engine during cold start to prevent the vehicle from running super rich when it's cold, and it just helps reduce emissions. Most of the time when this code pops up, what you'll see is shops will just say, hey, it needs a new air valve in it, and they'll replace the air valve and ship it down the road. That's the quick way to do it. I'm not going to lie. But I prefer to learn how things work and try to fix things before replacing parts. As you can see right here, this is the air valve, and it is disgusting. This is pretty normal, honestly, after so many miles. They get clogged up with carbon and they start to stick and not operate properly. And this is where the air valve connects to the intake. There is a little hole in the intake where it puts the air into the engine, and that little hole is completely clogged up. All right, so after some brake clean and some wire brushing, we've got the air valve all cleaned up, and we're going to use the scanner to activate it to make sure it works properly. Now, obviously, it's working very well now. So now we've got to clean the air intake port out, and we'll bolt everything back together. So, really good news here. These are what they call readiness monitors. This is what determines whether or not it's going to turn the check engine light on. And we've driven it 28.4 miles, which is about right. 30 miles is usually the case for most of these vehicles. And all of these components are passing their tests. And the ones that aren't supported, don't worry about that. The only one that hasn't passed is the evaporative system, but that has nothing to do with anything that we did. The good news is the thing that we did mess with, the secondary air system, it passed its test. So this tells me that the repair I did fixed the vehicle. So if anything else comes on after this, we're going to be dealing with a separate situation. So I'm just going to do a quick code scan here just to make sure there's nothing that's pending. And this thing's ready to rock and roll. Now, in a normal shop setting, you're really not going to take things apart and clean them and put them back together, typically, because the shop makes money on how quickly things turn around and leave the shop, as does the tech, because the tech is typically flat rate, which means they get paid based off of the hours that they put in. So say that the job to replace the valve is 3.5 hours. Well, if they can get the job done in an hour and a half, they get paid the 3.5 hours anyway, and the shop makes their money, the tech makes their money, and they move on. But the problem with that whole thing is, you don't really learn much. So in a normal shop setting, they would have just replaced this valve, and if the tech knew, he would have cleaned out the air intake port. But if he didn't know any better, they would have just slapped that valve on there and, sent it down the road, or, told the client, that, oh, it didn't fix it, we're going to have to do some more testing. So that's why I've always preferred, either an hourly rate plus some sort of commission, a quarterly bonus or something like that, something to make it worth my time to work on it and learn as we go. Because again, I don't like replacing parts unless I take something apart and realize, oh, this thing is just donezo. It is broken. It will never work again. But in this case right here, it was a valid solution to clean this thing up and put it back together and try it. Because again, it's only time at that rate. And it makes your client happier, you learn, and then at the end of the day, the client saves $1,000 worth of parts that would be involved with changing this whole thing out. So you not only you learn, the shop makes a decent bit of money, and you get a client for life out of that. And they're going to recommend you and everything that you do to all their family, all their friends, like, because you care enough to actually try to fix something as opposed to just changing parts because, well, that's the code, that's the part that's not working. So that's just, my whole theory with everything.